everybody. My name is Lisa. Thanks for tuning in, and you're watching One Lisa Show. Today, I wanted to kind of do a twofer. I'm showing off one of my makes. I'm wearing it, and I'm also showing you how I sewed it. So it's kind of like a sew along. This is one of my favorite patterns. It is Tilly and the Buttons, the Coco top and dress. I have made this numerous times, the top. And in fact, I traced my pattern and you can see how thick this is because I've made my sister, my mom, I've made me, I've done different sizes in case I wanted a looser fit or a more form-fitting fit. And this was my go at my Tilly and the Buttons Coco dress. I'm going to insert pictures. This is an easy pattern. It is geared for confident beginners. I call myself a confident beginner. This was my very first try at a knit fabric sewing pattern. I absolutely love it. I'll show you the back of the envelope. It says Braden Chick DIY style. Fill your wardrobe with classic Braden tops, cozy knit dresses, and 60s style funnel necks, all from the same pattern. So as you can see, I'm going to show you the line drawings. There is a simple top. So this is a nice boat neck top. You could do multiple sleeve length variations. This one is elbow length. And there are two different patch pockets. You have big patch pockets and small ones. You could add a funnel neck and cuffs if you'd like. It does have a split side hem. And then there's the dress version, which is also the boat neck or the funnel neck. And again, you have the options of cuffs if you'd like, or patch pockets. You could put it anywhere. So I have made a funnel neck top with no patch pockets. And I made that out of fleece. So I could wear it as an outdoor, like a pullover. And I really like that. I feel like a giant pink marshmallow in mine, but it is snuggly warm. And then I've made this top in the long sleeve and the 3/4 length sleeve multiple times, again, for my mom, my sister, and myself. I've done them looser and I've done them tighter. This is a size 5. I'm usually a size 6 in Tilly patterns, but for this dress, because I wanted something more form-fitting, I'm going to insert some pictures as well of me full length. But I did a size 5 and I feel it fits really good. I will say the dress is above the knee. I'm only 5'2", so above the knee for me is still just a little above the knee. If you are taller, I would suggest maybe adding a couple inches if you don't like a mini dress, because this is a 60s style mini dress. The fabric I used was a double knit poly from Joann's. And it, to me, had that 60s vibe. I love how this dress turned out. Perfect for summer, perfect for showing homes in the summer. And with my hair a little shorter, when I blow dry it under and give it that bob kind of feel, I feel very 60s and I love it. All in all, if you have not worked with knits, it has step-by-step instructions. The booklet has color pictures, and there are a lot of YouTube tutorials on how to make this. So after this review, you're going to see how I made it. I'm not the best photographer. I am not the best film person or editor. Forgive me. I don't do the best when it comes to sew-alongs, but I wanted to share it because I do try. Next time I do one of these, I'm going to use contrasting thread when I sew something because I think it'll be actually easier to show you guys how I did it. If you are on the fence, you don't need a special sewing machine to sew knits. A simple zigzag on your basic sewing machine, and mine is very basic, works just fine. I will recommend to get yourself jersey or ballpoint sewing needles for your machine. If you shop at Joann's, I would say use your 40 or 50% off coupon to get a package of sewing needles, or cheaper you would find at Hobby Lobby or Walmart. And I'd say my Walmart, I think they're about $4 or $5 for a package. If you shop at Minerva's website, you can get ballpoint or jersey knit needles for your sewing machine. Very cheap, like £2, which equals out to about $3.50 American dollars. My biggest hint is take your time, press your seams, use as many pins as you find helps you, and the zigzag stitch is the best. And there's 2 zigzags. If you can do a long, narrow zigzag, that one is great for the seams. And when it comes to a hem, it is more of a equal, even zigzag. And I don't know if you can really see that because I used white thread. Maybe more on the teal patch there you can see. A nice even zigzag. It's barely noticeable. If you use the Gutermann Miraflex thread, you can use a straight stitch. I have not done that yet, but I do have some that I got in a Beyond the Pink Door subscription box. Without further ado, this is how I made my Coco. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you find it helpful if you've not sewn knits or if you were curious about this pattern. This pattern, I have made so many of them that it is a staple of my wardrobe because you can do short sleeves, 3/4, elbow, or long, and all year. And the boat neckline is traditional. It's always stylish, no matter what you're wearing. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again real soon. This is my envelope for my Tilly and the Buns Coco pattern. I am making what the model is wearing, but I am not attaching the front pockets. I'm going to leave the pockets out. I am making a size 5, so I traced my pattern. And I'm going to give you a hint. This is the front piece. An easy way to tell the difference between your front and your back with this pattern, because they're very similar, is your front arm is going to have 1 notch. And on most patterns, your back armhole will have 2 notches on it. This is my back armhole, and there are my 2 notches. So this is the size 5 back. And you cut this on the fold. Both the front and the back are cut on the fold. And here is my front. And as you can see, I have 1 notch. The first step in making your Coco is to stay stitch. On both the front and the back pieces, I am going to stay stitch with a straight stitch 3/8 inch or 10 millimeters from the edge. So all along here, I'm going to do 1 straight line. I'm going to do that on the back piece as well. I deviate from the next step. The next step says to attach stay tape, a stabilizer, elastic, or a piece of ribbon at the shoulders. Sew that on and then sew the back and front together at the shoulder seams. I do it all in one step. What I did was, and I apologize, this is going to be hard to see because I'm using white thread and my fabric is printed on it. The backing is completely white. First things first, I'm going to match up my notches, pin those, and then where I stay stitched on both sides, I wanted to match that up too. This is 2 notches, so this is my back piece, and I have some elastic instead of ribbon. Otherwise, I do typically use ribbon, and I loosely pinned that as well. So I'm going to go in 5/8 of an inch with a narrow zigzag. And from here on out, we're using a narrow zigzag for the most part, and for the hems, an even zigzag. So a narrow zigzag should kind of look like a lightning stitch. And if you have that option on your machine, that's great. Mine does not have a lightning stitch
on it. I use a 2.5 by a 1.5 and my machine's more manual, so it isn't that easy to quite figure out, but I just like to make it a narrow zigzag, and I'm going to do 5/8 of an inch in seam allowance, and I'm just going to do it and make sure I catch this clear elastic as I go. And that's loosely taped in there, pinned in there, just because it's easier for me to manipulate it as I'm sewing. I'm going to do both shoulder seams. That simple.
We are the finished product. As you can see, it is just sewn, and this for some reason went not narrow, and I have a couple of skips in there, but I'm not going to sweat it because this is a great pattern. Even if it's not perfect, it's going to look great. The next step is we're going to open this up and we're going to press along that stay stitch line. We're going to press it in. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold over where we put our stay stitching. So at 3/8 of an inch, we're going to fold it over and press. And while we're pressing, we're also going to press our seams toward the back. And a great way to tell where your back is from this point on is the back is where your elastic or your ribbon is. So we're going to press this to the back, and we're going to press this in. And after we do that, then we're going to give it a nice zigzag, around an even zigzag to hold it in place. And here is my finished stitching. And when I folded it over and pressed it, I basically just went along from the wrong side. So I sewed it with this up, the wrong side up. It was easier for me to see where I was stitching. And there we go. And if you remember, always 2 notches on your back arm, so I know which side is my front and which side is my back. Next step is the sleeves. Next step, we're going to insert our sleeves, and they call this inserting it on the flat because we're going to do that before we do our side seam. So this is my sleeve. This is, everything's right side out. This has 1 notch. This is my front. This has 2 notches. This is my back. And since this is right side out, I'm going to put this right side out too. And this is 1 notch. And where did it go? There it is right there, 2 notches. So this is the right sleeve for this side of the body. So now, pretty simply, I'm going to fold it out back this way. So now right sides are together, and I'm going to take my center notch and I'm going to match it up with my center seam, and then I'm going to take I always do the notches first. That's how I do it. Let's not forget, I am not a professional. I always do my notches first, and then I'll do my ends. And I'm going to pin it. And what's great about knit fabric is it's actually pretty forgiving. I find doing a sleeve on a knit garment easier than doing a sleeve on a woven garment. That's me. Everybody's different, but I feel it's a little more forgiving. So I'm going to pin, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm finished pinning. Here's my sleeve, and it's pinned to the armhole. I do use a lot of pins. You should use what works for you. What I will say though is, keep in mind you have 5/8 inch seam allowance. You don't always line up edge to edge on the arm sleeve and the arm side pieces, but you want to make sure the seam allowances line up. And I know that's hard to visualize when you don't actually see a line for your seam line, but if you start to pin a little lower, you'll notice it's easier to pin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew my seam, 5/8 inch seam allowance, and just take my time
And if I get any puckers, I will rip and re-sew in those spots. But usually this is so much easier than doing a woven for me. Okay, I am going to see how I did. Here's my stitching. There's my notches. Now I'm going to flip it open and I'm just going to look along the seam. And I know it might be hard to see, but I'm going to look along the seam for any puckers or gathers or things that don't line up or look out of place. If that was the case, I'd probably just rip a couple of those stitches out and sew right over it and fix it. But that looks pretty good. I did the other side as well. So I'm going to flip over to that side and we're going to check out that seam too. And here's the seam. Make sure it's laying, looks good, no obvious puckers. And it's interesting how a good press can really help things also. From here, it's all gravy. What we're going to do next is after we press our seams toward our sleeve, we're going to line it all up, our sleeves, and we're going to do our sleeve seam all the way down. And then we're going to line up the bodice of our dress. We do have a notch. We're going to make sure those match up. There's my notch. I'm going to pin and sew all the way down there. So I'm going to do that on each of those and we're almost done. Might be tough to see, but I did pin my sleeves, my sleeve seam, and I matched my notches first, then my ends and my armpit. Then I also pinned my side seam of my bodice. Now I'm going to do my sleeve first, and then I'll come back and do my bodice. The instructions, I believe, say to do it all in one fell swoop. It just works easier for me to take my time and do one and then the other. I will repeat the process on the other side and see you when it's almost done. The sleeve seam has been sewn on each side. The bodice seam has been sewn on each side. I have added my label to the back. Now I'm going to turn it inside out, or right side out. Now I'm going to turn it right side out and try it on. If it fits, I'm going to determine where I want my sleeve hem to be and the bottom of my dress hem. I'm also going to, I'm also going to serge my seams on my sleeves and my bodice side just to clean it up and keep it nice and tidy.